Rabbi say, welcome back to Yerushalmi Kilayim. We are Perek Shvi Halacha Vav, which is on Daf Samach Vav. So we're talking about flower pots, which are put in the vineyard, and you plant grain in them. So odds is knokov, a flower pot with a hole. Mekadesh bekerem. If that's in a vineyard, and you sow grains in it, then the grains and the grapes are forbidden. Because remember, it gets nourishment through the ground, through the hole. Therefore, it's as if it's growing on the ground. She'ena nokov, if however it does not have a hole and it's on the vineyard and you plant a grain in it, eina mekadesh, the grapes and the grain do not become forbidden, because the grain that grows in Azaz she'ena nokov is considered detached from the ground. Although lechatchila you shouldn't really do it, you shouldn't sow grain in it lechatchila. Rabbinically, it's a problem. Rav Shimon said, zeh, whether it's got a hole or hasn't got a hole, is on the vineyard, asurin is forbidden, but below mekachin. But we will not. You shouldn't do it. But they don't become forbidden in such a state, because even though it grows in a flower pot with a hole, it's still really considered detached, just like one growing and one without a hole. So Rishimon is a bit more lenient. Okay, all right. Let's see now. If you pass a plant pot with a hole, which was sown with grain inside, so you're like walking, carrying it, and you're walking into a vineyard. So now, if the grain grew and added, while it was in the vineyard, 1/200th of its size, so it's like 0.5%, then it is forbidden. I don't know how long you're walking. It might be a massive vineyard. You might be going round and round in circles. For what I know. Well, you have to measure it before, measure it after, and see. So if it added 1/200th during the time, I mean, you might be sleeping there, I don't know, and having it holding it in your hair while it's standing sleeping for weeks. I don't know. Then it is forbidden, right? You have to say, we're talking about here, it's already reached a third of its growth, or it's already rooted somehow, right? And the grapes have reached the size of the bean, etc. So the Rambam says, we're talking about a case where you put it under a vine. But if you didn't put it, you just took it out, it doesn't become asur. Okay, whatever. Some say it's still forbidden even without putting it down, but the vineyard doesn't become forbidden. All right, let's see. Ein bein atzis nakov le'she'ein atzis she'ein nakov. There's no difference between a flower pot with a hole and a flower pot without a hole. And a hechshez roim. As far as the din of whether food which are susceptible to receive tumah, bilvad. Only that. Remember, the plants that are still connected to the ground cannot receive tumah, right? They can't become ready to receive tumah. Water falls on them while they're growing. It doesn't matter. It's only when they're detached from the ground, once they come into contact with liquids, that they become susceptible to receive tumah. So he's saying the difference between a flower pot with a hole and one without a hole is this din of hechshez roim. That's as far as receive the seeds, whether it's able to receive tumah. Now this brayso is like the view of Rav Shimon, who holds usually when it has a hole is detached, just like one without a hole. But with hechshez roim, for receiving tumah, it's considered still growing. Beram, so according to Shimon, it's still considered growing if there's a hole. Beram karabanan, according to Rabbanan, is charanin. According to the Chachamim, there are other differences between the two types. According to them, if it grows in a flower pot with a hole, it's always considered connected to the ground, and if it's detached, then it's without a hole, then it's considered detached. So we're going to bring two mishnayos, and we're going to see that according to the Chachamim, there are differences between one with a hole, one without a hole. Arts is nakov mekadesh bekerem. So that was that mishnah. If it's got a hole, and then you sow seeds into it, grain, and then the grains become forbidden. V'she'eina nakov eina mekadesh. If it doesn't have a hole, it does not forbid the vineyard. Right. Hatayleish me'adz is nakov chayev. On Shabbos, if you detach from a flower pot with a hole, you are liable because it's connected to the ground, according to the Chachamim. But Mishaena Nakov, if you detach a plant from one without a hole, potter from an Atayra is considered detached already. Now the Gemara brings a Mishnah which explains this din of being susceptible to receive tumah with things growing in a flower pot. Okay? Now we have a Mishnah in Machshirin. Food can't receive tumah until it's muksha, right? It's got to be wet with one of the 7 liquids, right? What are the 7 liquids? water, dew, wine, olive oil, blood, milk, and bees' honey. And that's only when they are detached. But if it becomes wet while it's still growing, it's not mushra to receive tumah. Now, Mishnah Nuksin discusses things that grow in a flower pot. Are they considered detached or not? Odds is nakuv. So if there's a hole, it doesn't make the seeds susceptible to receive tumah if they got wet. If there's no hole, then yes, it's considered detached, and no liquids would make them susceptible to be tumah, to become tumah. Okay, now this is according to everyone. Even Rav Shimon agrees for receiving tumah. Ox is not, if it's got a hole, it's considered connected to the ground. Now, Rabbi Yossi explained, Stam, he didn't actually refer to any Amoira. But Rav Chanina accepted these words, B'Shem Rav Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak in his name. The Hatara of Ribas Tara Zeraim. So, in other words, even though Rav Shimon made no difference between with a hole, without a hole, but with receiving tumah, he made that distinction. So, why is that? Because Hatara Ribas Tara Zeraim, the Torah widened its discussion with purification of seeds to include even if it's a flower pot with a hole, not that which goes in the ground, can't be mushra to receive tumah, but also if it grows in a flower pot with a hole, right? Usually Rav Shimon doesn't consider it like land, but as far as hechsher, he considers it as land. Matam, what's the source for his leniency? When some of the carrion falls of the 8 shrotzim, on any seeds which can be sown, they are tahor. Zera zarua is like the fruit connected to the ground, and these fruit can't be mushra to receive tumah. So if fruit is connected to the ground, it becomes wet, and then it touches a sheretz or whatever, they remain tahor. And the extra wording, zera zerua asher yizarea, that includes even if part of it is connected to the ground, right? So anything that grows in a flower pot with a hole is connected to the ground, it can't receive tumah. Now we bring another brisa which talks about things growing in a flower pot without a hole, as far as truma and maaser is concerned. Tani, we learned in the brisa. Otzis she'ena nokuv, flower pot without a hole. Maaserosav mehalacha. The chiyuv maaseros is only rabbinical. U'trumasa eda b'damas. If it truma got mixed up with chulin from that, it doesn't forbid the mixture. Ve'ein, and Yisrael who eats it, b'shogeg, ein chayavin ala chamesh. If he eats truma of this by mistake, he doesn't have to pay a fifth. Rabbi Yossi asks, Ma'olai ma'al, what about saying a bracha, bread made from wheat that grew in a flower pot without a hole? Would you say the bracha hamoitzi lechem min haaretz? Right? So that on the one hand, it grew from the earth of the flower pot. On the other hand, yeah, and it didn't actually grow from the ground. Yeah? Can we call it min haaretz? I mean, yeah, the earth of the flower pot, but it didn't actually grow from the ground. Is it min haaretz or not? Rabbi Yaina is not the ground. Rabbi Yaina boy came. He asked, Delas, a pumpkin that grows in a flower pot without a hole, well, can you use it for schach? Is it considered detached? Rabbi Yehuda Paziba, he asked, you had 5 vines in 5 flower pots which don't have a hole, and you rearrange the flower pots and you make 1 row of 3 and 1 of 2. 1 is a tail, so that's the format of a vineyard. So you put 5 vines in 5 movable flower pots. Are you going to say, is that a vineyard rabbinically, and you can't sow within 4 amas of it? Well, actually, he's saying it, but the question is whether he's asked about that. Is that a vineyard? Now, it's all very well. If you're going to tell me, hafachai, if let's say you move them around, let's say they're not like a vineyard, then what's the din? Do we say, right, okay, once they joined up to create a vineyard, then it's still got a name vineyard, even though you move them around? You want to say, wait a minute, I never found a movable vineyard. Yesh kerem mitaltal. You don't find such a thing as a movable vineyard. If you can move them, they're not considered a vineyard, even if they were nice 3 and 2 and 1 as a tail. Since the vines are movable, each one is considered separate, right? Therefore, they can't join up. If you walk with the flower pot with your hole, it's got grain in it, and if it grows 1/200th, it becomes forbidden. You take the flower pot in the vineyard under each vine. So you actually went under the vines. I mean, if you went between the vines, he says no asul, because you're holding in your hand more than 10 tefachim from the ground, right? And therefore, the airspace of the vineyard only goes up to 10 tefachim. If you move it under the vines, then it's considered as if the flower pot is high 10 tefachim from the ground. Rav Yochanan said, "La'avir asara hi masnisa." The Mishnah is talking about where you carried the flower pot in the air within 10 tefachim of the ground. So you carried it low, and therefore it's also even if you went between the vines and not underneath them. If you carried 5 flower pots with a hole, which have grain sewn into them, under one vine, so the vines are permitted. A single vine, Kilayim doesn't become osir b'diavad, only b'drabanan. And here, you just carried the flower pot under the vine. The Chachamim didn't osir b'diavad the vines. But the grain, maybe we'll forbid it, because it's come into the territory of the vine, and it caused the issur. But that's tifluk to Reb Elazar Reb Yochanan. It depends on an argument between Reb Elazar and Reb Yochanan, which we hadn't done Samach Daled. Reb Yochanan held that a vine can be forbidden even if the grain is not forbidden. So here as well, the grain can be also, even though the vines remain permitted. Reb Elazar, however, held you can't forbid one without forbidding the other. Right? How can it be ha'isa, that's the vine, which forbids the grain, eina nesa is not forbidden, but she'ena ha'isa, but the grain, right, that nesa should become forbidden. It must be that it should also be permitted. If you take one flower pot, which has grain, tachas chamesh kefanim, under 5 vines, which is a vineyard, everyone agrees the vine becomes forbidden, definitely the grain, and since both minim are forbidden, then that's not dependent at all on a machlokes Reb Yochanan or Elazar. So if you actually take the flower pot amongst 5 vines, then that's definitely a problem. Okay, right. Kilaya kerem. Now we're talking about what's also types of kilayim, different types of kilayim, which how they're awesome in our Torah. Let's talk about kilaya kerem. Kilaya kerem. So the grains in the vineyard or vegetables in the vineyard. Asurim in Israel, you shouldn't sow them. Or melekayim, you mustn't keep them there. If you see them growing, even though you didn't sow them, you can't leave them there. You have to uproot them. Asurim ba'ana. And if you did sow them, then you must get benefit from it. Kilai zeraim. So these are types of seeds. Asurin, they are forbidden in Israel melekayim. You mustn't sow them and keep them. But they are permitted to eat because and you can get benefit. So here, the issur to sow 2 seeds, right? It says Sod Chala Tizra Kilayim. You mustn't keep Kilai Zraim. It's referred to next to Kilai Behema, and it should have just said you shouldn't sow your field Kilayim, right? But it doesn't say that. It says Kilayim next to Sod Chalai, so we learn as if it says Kilayim Sod Chalai. What it means, you shouldn't have any kilayim at all in the field. Okay. So what have we got here now? Kilai behema, you're allowed to get benefit. You're allowed to eat it. So kilai zraim, also you're allowed to eat it and you're allowed to get benefit. Okay. So there's different seeds there. Just different seeds you're allowed to get benefit. Kilai begodim, you have wool and linen. Mutaron v'kol davar, you're allowed to make it and to get benefit from it. Be'en asurin ela mililbash, you're not allowed to wear it. Kilai behema, so an animal born from a mixed breed that were put together. Mutar legadol, you can rear it or l'kaim and keep it to get benefit from it. Ve'en asurin ela mahabiyah. The issur is only an act of arranging the animals being together, right? Different animals, putting them together, holding them together. That act is forbidden. Kilai behema asurin zemzeh. Animals which are kilai behema born from kilayim, you mustn't mate them one with the other. So maybe where one's mother is a horse and the other one's father is a horse, we're going to discuss all that, right? You can't mate them together. Kilaya kerem asurin, we said kilaya kerem is forbidden, you can't keep it. Except it says, don't sow your vineyard, kilayim. Eli ela zoreah, that's one who sows kilaya kerem. Mekayem minan, how do I know also keeping it? Talmud Loma, it says kerem. But we learn the pasuk as if it says "V'kerem v'lai kalayim," as if it says that instead of "V'kamacha." It means in your vineyard you shouldn't have kalayim. Ma, what's the source of the Mishnah that forbids to keep Kilayim Rabbi Akiva. Now, this issue of keeping Klal Kerem, is this only according to Rabbi Akiva? Why? Rabbi Akiva, he says that Mekayim over B'lai Saseh, if you do keep it growing, you transgress a negative command. Now, the Brisa there brings the Tanakama who argue, they hold you're not over B'lai Saseh by keeping it going. So is this only Rabbi Akiva here? So Rabbi Yossi answers, Rabbi YCD Cohen. No, everyone holds to this. Rabbi Akiva, Tanakama. Everyone says you mustn't do it. True, also. Keeping it going is also Torah, Lo Saseh. The argument is as far as lashes is concerned. The Mishnah talks about the Issur to keep it going. Everyone holds there's an Issur. And Mishnah is talking about B'Shalai Kiem. If you didn't keep it going Alidei Maser, through an action, let's say you saw it sowing and you left it there, you didn't uproot it. You didn't do a Maser, you didn't do an action. So Tanakama holds you don't get lashes. Rabbi Akiva argues, he holds even though you didn't do an action, you get lashes. If you kept it going through an action, then everyone agrees, Tanakama also agree, like you get lashes. So we don't have to say our Mishnah is only in a case where you Kiyem. It doesn't have to be through a Maisa. So yeah, if you did a Maisa, then everyone agrees you get lashes. Okay, so what he's saying here, it says, yeah, if you kept it by an action, even the Tanakama agree you get lashes in such a case. Okay. Like we've learned in the Brisa, now, if you cover over seeds of Kilayim in the earth, right, mixed seeds, and you cover them over in the earth, like you get lashes. You did an action to keep this Kilayim going. Okay? I mean, these seeds are already, we're saying now the seeds are already in the ground. You're just covering them with earth. Maybe you're not sowing them, but there's Mikayim, you're keeping them there. You follow? Some say the Issur to keep Kilayim going is B'nai Torah, okay? Some will say, according to Chachamim, it's only rabbinical. We're worried people will be choshed you that you actually went and sowed it by Issur. Alright, let's see. So I got on to tell you, if you cover over the seeds of Kilayim in the earth, like how you get lashes, you've done an action. Okay, and we've learned with Klal Kerem you mustn't get benefits. How do we know that Klal Kerem? So that's your seeds with your vineyards. That's also to get benefit. Ne'eman Khan, it says pentik dash, that lest it become forbidden. Ne'eman halan, you got pentivakish by a person with avodah zarah might stumble after it, and they're similar words. Ma pen, just like the word written pen, amol halan with avodah zarah. It's asabana, you can't get benefit from it. Pen, never can. So also with the reference to seeds with a vineyard, but it says pentik dash, asabana, you're not allowed to get benefit. So we learn from here, Klal Kerem is also to get benefit B'nai Torah. Some want to say that we learned the Issur never can. It says with Klal Kerem pentik dash, as we said, but never lalan. We talk about a person who's giving himself over to immorality. Kadesh b'bnei Israel. There will not be an immoral person amongst the Jewish people. And the words Tigdash and Kadesh, we have Shava Ma Kadesh and Eman, just like there, Isa Barnaya is talking about getting forbidden benefit after Tigdash, so it can. So also the one with Klal Kerem, it's Asa Barnaya, you can't get benefit. Now this person doing an immoral act, what does it mean you can't get benefit from that? What does that mean? Kadesh Asa Barnaya, someone who does an immoral sexual relationship. You're allowed to get benefit from the person, right? Himself, his body, his money. So what do you mean Kadesh? That's Asa Bahana. Amrav Chuna, Biyasa Asura Bahana. The act of the relationship itself is forbidden to get any benefit. Any benefit he gets from that, but Issur is forbidden. Someone to learn him in Adar from the following. Chanina said, it says we Klal Kerem, pentik dash, lest the crop become forbidden. And the word pentik dash, we learn pen tukah ba'esh. It will be burnt in fire. So don't sow your vineyard Kilayim, because if you do, you have to burn in fire all the seeds which you're going to sow, and the vines growing in the vineyard. And the fact that the Torah has obligated a person to burn a Klal Kerem, we learn that it's Asa Barna, and therefore the Torah required you to burn it. See if it says, like Tizra Kamacha Kilayim, you mustn't sow your vineyard Kilayim. Melama Jaina Chayav, you only get lashes. Actually, Yizra Shnei Mini, you're going to have different types of seeds. Kerem in the vineyard. Yeah, you mustn't sow Kilayim, two types of seeds in the vineyard. So if you only sow one type of seed, you don't get lashes. Divrei Rabbi Yosha, that's Rabbi Yosha's view. Rabbi Yonasan Amar, he said, "Afilu min echad." Even one type of seed, Yechai Malchus because of Klai Kerem. Okay, even one type of seed, you are going to be liable. Okay. Now we're going to see what's the need of the pasuk with Klai Kerem. Let's discuss Rabbi Yonasan first. So who said what? Who said what? Let's remind ourselves. The first opinion, Rabbi Yosha said you need to have two seeds to be liable. And Rabbi Yonasan said, no, even one seed in the vineyard. I mean, the pasuk says, "Lo tizra kamacha kilayim." Does it mean seeds on the vineyard? The other opinion says, no, don't put a vineyard with a type of other seeds which are different to the vineyard. So you're creating kilayim by adding a seed to the vineyard. Not that you need two seeds. According to Rabbi Yonasan, we can understand. It says, the two Isurim, there's Klai Zerayim and Klai Kerem. So also a vineyard is called a field. There is a davar nema. Why does it say Lo Tizra Kama Chakalayim? We have an extra pasuk, a separate Isur. So the Gemara says, Chavai Namrin, they said, the reason for Klai Kerem, lahachmer alav, to be strict on Klai Kerem, that what? Afilu min echad, he said even one type of seed, you get lashes for Klai Kerem. One seed in a vineyard, lashes. And that's how we learn this view of Rabbi Yonasan. According to Rabbi Yosha, I mean, the pasuk says, "Sadcha like tizra kilayim." You mustn't sow kilayim in your field, so you shouldn't sow two seeds. So le'ezadavar nema. Why does it say like tizra kamacha kilayim? Right? According to Rabbi Yosha, the Issa Klai Kerem is only with two types of seeds. Klai Zerayim is even if you have two seeds in a field which is not already sown. So sowing two seeds is also even if you're not actually sowing them in a vineyard. So why does the Torah have to tell you another pasuk about doing it in a vineyard? Any two seeds is already forbidden, even if it's not in a vineyard. Rabbi Amrin, so the Bnei Yeshiva answered, the reason why the Torah added an extra isur l'hasraya for the warning, if they warn you, the one who's sowing, you're over on isur klai kerem, you'll get lashes, apart from the chiyat malchus for klai zerayim, shem hisrubai. If they warned you that this is mishum sadcha because of that isur, like you get lashes for klai zerayim, and if they warned you mishum kamacha for the other isur, like you get lashes for klai kerem. So there's two isurim here, and he says you could get lashes for whichever one they warned you for. Rechon Bachia said we need the extra pasuk liten lai shiur to give for klai kerem a shiur for the distance between the species where you're over sowing seeds in the vineyard. A different share from that which is fixed with Zerayim. Because Tamam, with Klai Zerayim, different seeds together, you're not over unless you sow the two types within Shisha Tvachim, 6 Tvachim, one for the other. Whereas with Klai Kerem, the issue of sowing is even if the seeds are far away more than 6 Tvachim from each other, but they are sown within 4 amas of a vineyard. You hear that? So with Klai Kerem, they can be more than 6 tvachim away, the two seeds, but they're in a vineyard. That's the problem. If we only had the pasuk about Klai Zerayim, so if the distance was more than 6 tvachim, even though they are sown within 4 hours of a vineyard, maybe there'd be no lashes. So the Torah says, like Tizma Kama Chakalayim, even though the two types of seeds are far away, more than 6 tvachim, since they're not distance from the vineyard 4 amas, you're over on the Isur Klai Kerem, and you get lashes for that. Okay? Now, the Isur from the Torah to sow Klai Zerayim is only if the two types of seeds are within 6 tvachim, one for the other, and there's another condition. They must be within a fence. You hear that? They have to be within a wall, surrounded by a fence. Now, Klai Zerayim, which are next to a vineyard, Rabbi Bun says the pasuk that forbids Klai Kerem comes to add that as long as the seeds are within 4 amas of the vineyard, you're chayav on sowing the seeds, even if they're more than 6 tvachim away from each other. Now, the fact that Rabbi Bun just said we're adding you don't need them to be within 6 tvachim, that's what he said. You still want them in the vineyard, right? Within 4 amas of the vineyard. But he never said you don't need them to have a wall around them. Never said that. So the Gemara is medayek that if they're not surrounded by a wall, they're not going to be forbidden with this sowing. You hear that? So even though we're saying, look, they could be 6 tfachim apart, and it will still be a problem with the vineyard, but it sounds like they still need to be surrounded by a wall. Okay? Now, Manakion, what are we talking about here? How are you surrounding these seeds by a wall? Because let's say you made a fence on the inside of the vineyard. Within the vineyard, you made a fence, and you surrounded the seeds. Then if that's the case, Batel HaKerem, then the Issur Kla Kerem's gone away. Why? You got a wall separating between the seeds and the vineyard. You got a wall going around, so it's nothing to do with the vineyard now. There's no mixture of seeds in the vineyard. Now let's say you'll tell me, let's say you made a fence outside the vineyard. You hear that? You've got a big vineyard and you've got seeds in the middle, and you made a fence all the way around. Well, that is the empty area between the vineyard and the wall that surrounds it, which we've learned about Machol HaKerem. And the Machol HaKerem, that boundary area around, that green belt around, 4 amas is not enough to allow you to sow other seeds. If the distance is less than 12 amas, you mustn't sow the other seeds. So why is Rabbi Bun forbidding you to sow seeds only within 4 amas? If it's din Machol HaKerem, you need to distance 12 amas away. Right, the area around the vineyard, if it's surrounded by a fence, you mustn't sow within 12 amas. And if you're understanding the seeds are on the outside within that boundary area, where's he getting 4 amas from? Ella, you have to say like this. What are we talking about? Besada, you have a field of grain. Okay? Now, this field of grain acts as a fence for some more seeds, which are in the center. You got that? You got a field of grain, and that standing grain acts as a fence for the grains that are in the middle, for the different grains that are in the middle. Now, the Gemara says like this: Shahayasham, stay Tavua, you had a field of grain next to a vineyard. Now, you made a gap. You took out some of that grain. You now have an area which is not sown, which is surrounded by a mechitza of grain. You hear that? You've got a gap in the middle of this grain field. You sow in that place another type of species, more than 6 tfachim away from the mechitzas of grain which is surrounding that area. Okay? So what have you got? You've got your field of grain. You've broken away a space. You put seeds in the middle. Okay. Now, that seeds that are sown now and the wall of grain are not 4 amas away from the vineyard. Okay? They're within 4 amas of the vineyard. Now, since the grain and the seeds are not 4 amas away from the vineyard, and they are surrounded with a wall through the grain is acting as a wall as well. One who sows there is over the Issur Kla Kerem. Now, even though the Mechitza Satzvua, the grain wall, which surrounds the seeds, is considered a wall to join the 2 species, the seed and the grain, it's joining up to be a problem, grain and seed, but it's also acting as a wall, as far as Klal Yisrael, but it's acting as a wall as well. Rabbi Bun holds it's not treated as a wall of the vineyard, and to forbid the sowing if you don't have between the vineyard 12 amas. Remember we said the wall outside you need 12 amas. This wall of grain, we don't consider it a wall that it forbids 12 amas. We don't go that far. Right? We say 4 amas is a problem. Because the grain is significant, it's not bottled to become a wall for the vineyard. I've always said that's the hardest bit of Gemara for today, right? What have you got? You've got a vineyard. You've got a wall of grain. You've got some seeds. The seeds are within 4 amas of the vineyard. The wall is within 4 amas of the vineyard. Usually when there's a wall, it forbids 12 amas. Here we're saying no, it doesn't forbid 12 amas up to the wall. It's only 4 amas it forbids. This wall is not a proper vineyard wall. Yeah. It's a bit of grain. Yeah. It's standing grain. It's not a proper vineyard wall. That's why it only forbids 4 amas and not 12. If it was a proper vineyard wall, it would forbid 12 amas. But because it's not a proper vineyard wall, it's only 4 amas. Okay? So the Gemara learns, explains Rabbi Bud, because you put it that the grain surrounding that empty patch is considered mixed with the seed which is sown inside it. So you've got the grain and you've got the seed, and it's also treated as a wall that surrounds both of them to Asa for Kilayim. And Ba'asya that fits in Kedam Rav Chanina said, Ein ha'isa, we don't say that anything that causes Issa Kilayim, something which forbids, Nasa Mechitza Lehatzil, it can't itself become a wall to save another type of min from being Asa Mishum Kilayim. So they decided ha'isa, something which causes Issa Kilayim, Nasa Mechitza Leasa, that can become a wall to forbid the seeds because of Kilayim. So even though this wall is part of the mixture of Kilayim, it can also serve as a wall which causes this mixture to be Asur Mishum Kilayim. You see that? So even though, yeah? So this says again. So what's Rav Chanina saying? Ein ha'isa, something which causes Issa can't become a wall to save another type becoming Asur. But Savrin Meima, they understood, Isa, something which can cause an Issa Kilayim, Nasa Mechitza Le'asa, can become a wall to forbid the seeds because of Kilayim. So even though the Kama is part of the mixture of Kilayim, it can also be a wall which causes this mixture to be Asa because of Kilayim. This and that, these seeds and so on. Okay. Aldate Rabbi Yonatan. Now back to the pasuk about Klal Karim. Now, Adarte Rabbi Yonatan, according to Rabbi Yonatan's view, now with Klal Yisrael it says, Ksiv, just having a mixture of seeds, Sodcha, your field, you loitizra Kilayim, you mustn't have Kilayim. So we learn, you mustn't have 2 seeds together. But Le'ez Davar Nema, why does it say loitizra Karmacha Kilayim, you mustn't have in your vineyard? And according to Rabbi Yonatan, Klal Karim is also anyway, even 1 seed in a vineyard. So it should have just said, don't sow your vineyard. Right? The sowing is even with different types of seeds, not with 1 vine and 1 seed. So why does the Torah write Kilayim? So the question is not really a question. You know what? The word Kilayim is extra because you find that. Said Hamdat Omar. That which the pasuk says extra. This extra word. La mata lama'at. Don't start asking me lama'at Omar. Why does the pasuk say this? That is the way of the Torah. That sometimes it says something and explains it, even though you could have learned it anyway without the extra. So that's the Yerushalmi Chiddush here. You got an extra word. Well, the Torah does that. Yeah, that's what the Yerushalmi is telling you. That the Torah will say something and explain it. Could have just said like Tizra Kalmacha. The word Kilayim is a bit extra. All right, some say that, remember, the Issa is only with Mapolis Yad, where you throw it in 1 handful. Remember that? In Bavli, Rav Yoshev is the one who holds Klal Kerem is only with Mapolis Yad, with 1 handful. Rav Yonasan doesn't mention that tonight. In Bavli, it's mashma, according to Rav Yonasan, the Issa is even if it's done without in 1 handful. Tosis other Rishonim. Yerushalmi holds the opposite. Rabbi Yonasan is the one who holds the Issa Klal Kerem is only with 1 handful. The word Kilayim. According to Rabbi Yosha, there's no makar for that condition. Some say the Yerushalmi is the opposite of the Bavli. Some argue, and the Yerushalmi is Rabbi Yosha, is Rabbi Yonasan, they both hold Issa Klal Kerem is only when the sowing is done with 1 handful. And then you'll have to change the drashos, whatever it is. Okay. Where are we now? The Gemara also says, according to Rabbi Yonasan, the pasuk is telling you with the word Kilayim, Kaid Am Rab Zehira, like Rab Zehira said, Lo Tizra Kamacha Kilayim. The extra word Kilayim, we learn, Ika Kamacha, the main sort of vines where the vineyard is growing, Kilayim Lo Tizra. Your main vineyard, Kilayim Lo Tizra. Don't sow Kilayim there. But let's say a seed in a vineyard, which is already growing, the Torah never forbade it. So on the grape seeds and so on, that you shouldn't sow seeds. But if a seed happens to be already growing in the vineyard, the Torah never forbade it. Saying it seems that if there's a seed already growing, is that how they explain it there? It seems to say that if, like Tizra Kamacha Kilayim, on a vine, don't sow seeds. But on a seed that's already growing, the Torah never forbade it. Again, this question of, is it only a handful or not in a handful? The Torah should have just said Kamacha Tizra Kilayim, which would tell me, don't sow kilayim in a vineyard. All right. He asked before Rabbi Yossi, Tama. With kilayim we say Ein Zari Ilan Kruim Zroim. That seeds of a tree seeds, whatever, are not really called seeds. You can put them in a vineyard together with vegetables. With being susceptible to be receiving Atama, we say Zari Ilan, the tree seeds Kruim Zroim, that they are called seeds, and they do have a din of Hechsher to receive Tumah. So how are the seeds different with Hechsher from the Zroim, which is said with Kilayim? So Rabbi Yossi answers Amalei, he says Tamam, with Issa Kilayim, Mi'at HaKosov. The Torah said no. She'ein derech b'nei Adam li'as Karen Zroim. That we don't call all types of seeds Zroim. But with Hechsher to receive Tumah, Riba HaKosov, the Torah went overboard, went more. It's Mufurish with Torah called Zera, Zerua, Shei Zera. So any types of seeds can become Moshe to receive Tumah. Okay, now, the Gemara concludes this is about covering seeds of Kilayim with earth, and you get lashes for that, according to everyone, according to Rekiva and the Chachamim, because you've done an action to keep the Kilayim going. There's another opinion why you get lashes. If you cover with earth the seeds of Kilayim which were already in the ground, like it, you get lashes because of Zereh Kilayim, because you've covered it on earth, it's going to help them grow. You hear that? They're already in the earth and you cover it, you get lashes, not because of keeping it, because you're sowing it, by keeping it to grow. Have we not learned this already in Masechet Makos? Someone who plows a furrow in a field, you're chayiv because of 8 lavin, and one of the lavin is kilayim bekerem. How can you be kilayim through plowing? The Torah never forbade plowing. It must be you're covering the seeds, right? You're over on sowing. So you see, covering the seeds helps the sowing. What Rabbi Yana was very happy when he praised Rabbi Yochanan when he heard this. He said, "Azarim zav mikis." Yes, wonderful things from your mouth. You're a wise man. I think the wise man should listen and have a lot. He'll take wisdom to himself. Shmuel Lakish said, after all these praises, I could say there's a problem here. I can explain it. Now really, who says it's sowing? It could be you're liable, like Rabbi Kiva. Rabbi Kiva, he said, you're just keeping your field. You transgress. Actually covering it is keeping it there. Maybe that's why you're liable. No, who says it's sowing? You're not sowing it, you're keeping it there. Rabbi Kiva you're liable. But wait a minute. Rabbi Kiva said, lava, if you keep your over a loisase, but okay, how far did he go? Shema Lilkos, you're going to get lashes for that? Surely not. Here, Mishnah Malkus, we're talking about here Malkus. You can't tell me we're chayav the one who covers it Malkus because of keeping it going like Rekiva. That can't be. It must be. We're talking about covering it with earth of sowing, and that's why the Mishnah says there's lashes, and that's the way Rabbi Yochanan explained it. And the Gemara brings another proof that we can't be talking about Malkus only according to Rekiva. It must be. It's like sowing. We've also learnt that it can't be just keeping it going. One of the lavin of one who plows the furrow is shmita. Now ploughing was in the shmita. Islach Mema, are you going to tell me that is shvius to Rabbi Kiva, who forbids Kiyum Kilayim and this covering is also? And basically we don't find anywhere Rabbi Kiva forbids you to keep seeds in shmita, just to maintain it. Rabbi Kiva doesn't forbid that. right? It must be where you're improving it, you're sowing it. And that's why,
You also wouldn't get makas.
No, true. But you're obviously doing an action. You're covering it with earth. You're doing an action. But if it's sowing, it's one thing. But just maintaining it, no. So the mission which obligated because of Shvius, and if it's covering it with earth, with these seeds, and it's called sowing, and that's the kavanah why you're chayav on the ploughing, maybe because of Klal Karim, the way Rabbi Yochanan explained it. The mission can be according to the Chachamim as well. Don't tell me it's only according to the view of Rabbi Kiva, because Shemitah doesn't really make sense with the view of Rabbi Kiva. So then, now this idea is based on the idea that you can't get lashes for ploughing on Shemitah. But the Gemara says, who says? He says, Rosh Lakish maybe holds, okay, we don't treat covering seeds as sowing. But Pastor, he can explain Shvius. Maybe Shvius is Rabbi Lazar. We find Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Lazar, he said, like in Adei Chavisha B'Shvius, maybe ploughing is enough to get lashes. Rabbi Yochanan said, no. Ain't like in Adei Chavisha B'Shvius. You don't get lashes for ploughing on Shemitah. So since Rabbi Lazar holds you get malchus for chavisha, for ploughing itself in Shemitah, could be the Mishnah holds that. And therefore it's chayav, we're chayav the one who does ploughing, one furrow and Shemitah. Don't telling me, oh, it's just Zareah. Maybe it's not Zareah, maybe it's chayavish. Maybe that's the reason to be chayav. I think we'll stop here, I may say.